So welcome everyone. This webinar is to present and discuss and exchange around our newest report. When I say our, is the Alliance for Affordable Internet, which is an alliance of now I think over 100 organizations working globally to change public policies and regulations to make the internet more inclusive and affordable. So we have this 2020 report that was released last week, and we're having this seminar in Asia, in Africa, in America, and this one specifically for the English-speaking and any other Latin America English-speaking person interested, and where we're going to present the findings, the main findings of the Global Affordability Report, and we can have an open exchange or discussions around the key findings, the importance of what will be presented, and how useful it is for you being stakeholders of the, let's say, internet ecosystem. So Anna from the research team, from the 4AI research team, is going to present, and then you can write down your questions in the chat or ask for, who can give you the microphone. We can open the microphone after the presentation. But if you want to write questions, we can record it there. By the way, you know, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared in our YouTube channel, just in case. So you're aware of that. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. And Anna, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Ana Maria Rodriguez. I'm a researcher here in the Alliance, and I'm proud and happy and excited to present some key findings of our Affordability Report 2020. This report is this edition is the 7th edition of the report, and we are focusing this year on broadband planning and national broadband plans. And I will explain throughout the presentation why should we plan for broadband and why is this key to bring the cost of the internet down, which is our ultimate goal. I have to mention as well before starting that this project and this report was led by my colleague Teddy Woodhouse, who is in the call as well. And we're very excited to share these findings with you. So to start, I want to share with you how are we going to divide the presentation. First, I'm going to share with you what is the current situation, why are we talking about this today, what are the barriers to connectivity and access, and then move into what needs to change. So basically, share our policy recommendations that we have in the report and that we have found from our research and share them with you. Then we will move into learning from evidence. Here I will show you some case studies from different countries in the Latin American and Caribbean region and share them with you because they have been really good in certain aspects of national broadband planning. And we could all learn from those best practices. And at the end, we will translate these, we will try to translate this evidence that we have in the Affordability Report into action. And I think we can all help in that discussion and share our experiences, comments, or questions from each of the countries in the region. So to start with, I want to show and share these numbers with you to explore a little bit what's at stake here and what has COVID bring with it. So sadly, starting with the first one, 150 million people will be pushed extreme poverty by 2021 due to COVID-19. And talking about COVID-19, it has shown us the urgency of connection and the urgency of having internet, and has shown us that internet is not a luxury, but it's a lifeline, and we all need this to enjoy all the benefits that the internet has to offer. As well, schools and university closures affected 1.3 billion learners around the world. And the question here is, did these learners have the tools that they needed to transit between face-to-face learning to homeschooling or remote learning? Did they have the device? Did they have affordable data? Were they able to access to data unlimited and be able to keep learning and keep their process of learning through internet? I think the answer is no. Many learners did not have this opportunity, and we need to work so those that are still at home learning and in the future for them to have the opportunity to connect meaningfully and with affordable data. Also, half of the population is not connected, so we need to connect the unconnected and work for those that are not connected and offer them opportunities, offer them affordable data and meaningful connectivity. So talking about data affordability, I want to share with you this map that is showing us the actual affordability of the data in the region in Latin America and the Caribbean. These different colors are based, or divisions in the map are based on the UN Broadband Commission target for affordability, the 142, which is 1 gigabyte for no more than 2% of the average monthly income. So we can see in general that the region is doing okay, it's doing well. Many countries have reached that threshold, they have passed that threshold, and they are offering affordable data for the population in those countries. But there are some countries, a couple of them in South America and some in the Central America region, that need to work more towards affordable data for the citizens in that country. So we invite those countries to work in policies and find effective policies that could help bring that cost of the internet down. And I cannot talk about affordable connectivity and access in general without mentioning the importance of meaningful connectivity. This is a concept that we launched in Alliance in the beginning of the year, and it's basically the importance of not only connecting partially or basically, but meaningfully. People need a meaningful connectivity to enjoy all the things that the internet has to offer them. And to do this, we have set some targets. So that person needs 4G mobile connection, a smartphone, unlimited broadband access point at work or at home or place of study, and they need to connect daily. When a person has this, then he or she is meaningfully connected, and we should aim not only for affordable data for everyone, but for meaningful connectivity for everyone. And to reach these goals, both the affordability of the data and meaningful connectivity, we need strong plans, strong strategies leading the countries and governments towards reaching these goals. So moving into some findings, general findings of the report, I can share with you this graph that shows the behavior of the broadband policy change from the year where we started publishing this data in the Affordability Report to today. The line in green is the average score of the Affordability Drivers Index. I don't know if you're familiar with this index, but what it measures is not the actual affordability of the data in a country. So if a country is in place number 1 or 2, that doesn't necessarily mean that that country has data affordability for its citizens. What it means is that the policies and the regulatory environment that this country has is robust enough and good enough to provide a scenario that will create affordable data for the population. So it measures policy and regulatory environments and see how they are doing, and if they are good or not, if they are good enough, if they are efficient, if they are working really towards the affordability of the data. So I think that was important to mention because maybe some people are not familiar with this index, but what the green line is saying then is that the broadband policy change has been very slow. From when we started this publication back in 2014 to today, the average affordability drivers index score has only increased 14 points. We would like this to be faster. We would like policies to have a faster impact, but we understand that it takes some time, but still we encourage governments to work towards better policies to secure affordability data for everyone. The good news is that the actual affordability of the data has improved quite a lot. So from when we started collecting broadband pricing in 2015, it has decreased to more than half since 2015. So it has gone from approximately 7% to 3.1%, meaning more people can afford this data. And this is very good news. This shows us as well that we're going in the right direction. Policies are going in the right direction, and then the affordability of the data as well is going in the right direction. So we encourage the governments to keep working in this way and improving their policy and regulatory environments to secure internet for everyone. This correlation this graph shows that correlation between the affordability of the data and the scores of that affordability drivers index. And the message here is that there is possible to change. It is possible to change. There is a space for changing. So if we work in policy and if we work in robust policies and design them in an effective way, those policies can have an impact on the affordability of the data. And this graph shows us that. I want to share with you as well the top 10 countries in the Affordability Drivers Index in the Americas. So you can see here that Colombia and Costa Rica are in the top, and then highlight that Argentina and Dominican Republic have improved as well their scores in the Affordability Drivers Index. Maybe you're asking yourself why Colombia and Costa Rica are there in the first places. And our research showed that these two countries stand out as well in their scores for the National Broadband Plan. So they have really good national broadband plans that are sort of a tool to guide their efforts in terms of all the policies that they have. And these national broadband plans are in place to guide all that and provide a good policy environment that can, at the end, result in affordable data. So here's to highlight as well what I was saying previously, the importance of that national broadband score. So those countries that really have that top scores in that national broadband plan, a plan that is robust, that has targets, that includes different populations for its drafting and validation. Those plans, those countries are the ones scoring as well very high in the general ADI. This national program plan score is part of the ADI as well. I need to say that. I need to mention that and be transparent with that. But it shows us that those national program plans actually have an impact on the whole policy environment of the country. Here we have, for example, Costa Rica and Colombia that we saw in the previous table that are ranking high in the general ADI score are also, they also have high scores in those national program plans. So I have told you all about what's the current situation, how is the region looking into how is the region in terms of the data affordability, the importance of meaningful connectivity, and some initial and general findings from the report. But the actual question is what needs to change, and what needs to change from the governments and policymakers to actually overcome those barriers and obstacles that are put in place by the affordability of the data and by the impossibility of many people to have meaningful connectivity. So from our research, and because we have focused this report in broadband plans, we found that the broadband plans actually have the power to make the internet affordable. And how can we create it? How can they create this? They can do this through smart spending. So they set the right scenario for the public spending to be smart. The public sector will be able to select those projects that are key to close the gaps in the country. Those projects have an impact on the population and put the money there, invest their money in those projects. And the National Broadband Plan is the one guiding those efforts and those investments in that smart way that result at the end in affordable data. Also, they set as well the scenario for market stability. How can they do this? Well, through a good collaboration between the public and the private sector, and a national broadband plan that includes both the national and the private sector, and create a good and create trust and a good scenario for them to interact. Then the private sector will be willing to invest more also in the long term. If the private sector understands what are the regulatory conditions of the country, what are the rules of the game, then they will be able to dedicate more investment to meaningful projects that will create impact and at the end offer affordable data for the population. And lastly, they create new partnerships and sources of accountability. They create these through an open consultation process in the drafting and validation of the broadband plan. So if you have a plan that has been drafted and validated through open and broad consultation with different stakeholders, that creates new partnership because you bring together all those stakeholders and they create trust between them and different interactions that then create a space for more accountability and a different interaction with the public sector. So the question is, okay, they create this, they create internet affordability by smart spending, market stability, and accountability, but how does a good broadband plan look like? So we researched and we analyzed 66 national broadband plans in different regions throughout the world. And we looked into certain things in those national broadband plans. So we looked at if they do have open consultations as their drafting and validation process, if they include some process for reviewing how the broadband plan is doing in terms of their targets, and also how are they setting targets. Do these targets have, are they measurable? Do they have a clear timeline to follow up? And we measure, we looked into those particular ones on 4G coverage, fixed access, data affordability, device affordability, and rural access. And with all these, these national broadband plans, and looking into all these details, we came up with 3 very clear policy recommendations on how, and this explains a bit on how should a national broadband plan look like, and what are the elements that a good national broadband plan has. We, as I said, we looked into these all the national broadband plans, and we found out that the good ones have mainly 3 things in common, and therefore our policy recommendations. So the first one is to have a broadband consultation in place for the drafting and validation of the plan. So include different sectors of the different stakeholders, the public sector, the private sector, and the civil society. Very important to include the society because that way you align different expectations, different problems, and you take into consideration to draft that plan different realities as well. And also it helps you set real targets based on what actually people need and different sectors in the population need, not only, for example, what the private sector needs, but also other actors in the sector need. So we encourage that open consultation process and bringing together all these actors, especially civil society. You could have the participation of people with disabilities, indigenous leaders, rural community leaders, women groups, gender advocacy leaders as well. So you can have a wide range of participants and voices that will bring richness to a national broadband plan and have a diverse and inclusive broadband plan. Second, a plan must have targets that address the country's most critical gaps. So those must be targets that really help the country close those gaps, and they should be measurable and with time targets as well. So they should have a timeline, so you could be able to follow up on what the plan is doing and what is not, and hold the government accountable as well. And third, a plan must come with funding commitments. So you need money and resources to actually make this happen and to bring the national broadband plan into action. There should be a funding commitment from the government to secure the implementation of the plan and ultimately show results on, for example, data affordability and population and connected population. The plan should also include a process for the review of the national program plan, typically every 2 years at least, to see how the plan is going, to see if the targets are being reached or what is missing, or see if the plan is going the right direction. So having policy recommendations in mind, I want to share with you case studies of different countries in the region that we want to highlight for their good practices in the national program plans, in their national program plan. So to start with, a good and general program plan is the Colombian one. This country has done very enormous efforts historically as well. This is not the result of just the last plan they published or they validated, but it's historically that they have been working with different national program plans, one after the other, and the last one closing the gaps of the previous one, and it's an ongoing process that has brought Colombia to a very good national program plan score. From 0 to 10, it has a score of 9, and then a general ADI score of 85 as well, very good. If you remember the table that I showed you of the top 10 countries in America, Colombia is the first one. To talk about open consultations, we have Costa Rica. We want to highlight this country as well because it's a very good plan in general as well. If you see the score of the national program plan is 9 out of 10 as well, and very similar to Colombia in the general ADI score. But we want to highlight here the open consultations, and during the drafting and validation of the broadband plan, they included different consultancies and constituencies, and then voices were brought to the plan that enriched the plan, and they have a plan that is representative of different populations of the country, inclusive and diverse. And for clear targets, we have Dominican Republic, also doing very well in the national program plan. The score and in the ADI score is doing well, very well as well. If we remember as well, they went up one place in the general ADI score. And they set clear targets around fixed access, data for the and rural access. So we recognize this plan and we invite other stakeholders to look into it and look into the targets that are set in a way that you can measure them and you can look into the progress that those targets are how are they doing. And lastly, commitment for funding. We have Argentina. They are committing a very clear budget to the program planning, and this is what countries need to do to secure that the plan is implemented and not only stays in paper, but it's actually implemented and it brings results that we need in terms of data affordability and bringing that cost of the data down. And to finish with, I want to invite you all to read the report. It's in our website. We also have some different data. We have the website and other tools that you can interact with to look into the data and play around with it and explore, compare countries, see what's the behavior of those countries in the index and also the sub-indexes, because the main index is the Affordability Drivers Index, but we also have infrastructure and access. So on the website, you can explore all those details. And I invite you to check those tools and learn more about our affordability report.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this introductory presentation. So we open the discussion around the affordability report, its components, its recommendations. Just for starting, there was a question I answered already for in the web chat in the chat window about the 1G, the threshold. So I just wanted to precise that the 1 per 2, so 1 gigabyte per 2% of the monthly income, average income, is a measure of affordability. It does not at all mean that we believe people should have at least 1G or ideally 1G. It doesn't, it just means, it's just a way of measuring how affordable is internet. And that's a standard that was proposed and adopted, proposed by the A4AI a few years ago and adopted by the Broadband Commission. Someone muted me. Okay, it's okay. Okay, so that's the standard. I'm sorry, I didn't put my name here. So that's the standard that was adopted to measure affordability. It doesn't. The ideal for us is that people have unlimited access to data, and we developed this measurement or targets for meaningful connectivity. And in those targets, I also shared the link. The ideal is have unlimited access to unlimited data. You're meaningfully connected when you have good speed, and speed, by the way, is equivalent to 10 megabytes. That's the standard we're using, and we use 4G as a proxy for that. When you have access to unlimited data, so not only mobile packages, but unlimited data, when you can access daily, and when you have at least a smart device that you can use to share multimedia content and do other things. So that's the measurement and the targets we are proposing in the meaningful connectivity, let's say, concept or proposal. So now let's open the floor to more questions and ideas and opinions. If anyone has reviewed the report and wants to share a comment. I see Kim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so forgive me, I haven't read the report, but I would like to ask a question and appeal to you for your patience, because I'm not sure. I'm sure everybody else understands this, so please forgive me. When you refer to average income, I just want to get a sense of how the average income of a country that has a very wide variance in income, how that usefully represents, a portion of that. It's 1% of 1% of 2% of the average, I think you said, right? How does that fairly meaning meaningfully represent the ability to pay or whatever
It doesn't.
in countries in which, okay, so yeah, so if you could just tell me
no,
a
we
little
do,
bit about how you resolve that.
Yeah, this is the global, when we do our global analysis, we use per country, right? But when we go into the countries, and we do that for almost every country we work with, we go by quintile. So we look at the affordability per quintile of income. So we take the World Bank data that divides the income 20%, the first, the second, third, fifth, and then we see how much that one gigabyte package that is available for 30 days, et cetera, and it is not special offer, cost related to that quintile average income. We also do, for example, for women, for rural populations, you can use that and apply and develop that for any subgroup, let's say. But
So it's not the average across the whole population, it's
no,
the
we do.
average across the
It's
lowest quintile?
It's both. It's both. What we use in this report as the main is the national, the country one. But when we do studies for countries, or we prepare policy for a specific study, or we support policy, we go deeper and we look at quintile, we look at rural, urban, we look at gender, we look at the affordability for the different groups.
You
But
know, there is a, Yacine, I'm seeing on my screen a note that says Yacine Khelladi's AFA AI's network bandwidth is low. I just thought I'd let you know that that's what.
Yeah, I'm in the countryside.
Okay, but yes, okay, so right, I got you. But this is national, and so you recognize that that it's not telling me. Yeah, you understand.
It tells you something. You can compare countries. But when you're going to go deeper and when you want to prepare a broadband plan, of course, you want to look at the affordability in the rural areas, in the different
Yes.
incomes, in the different even
Yes.
villages or whatever. So that you would do that. But
Right, and
this
you
is a
have
global
done that.
report.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we just show, here we just have like the
Right.
just in
Global.
here,
But you do
here-
have the individual reports for different countries that are disaggregated by that.
yes, exactly, because we recognize that that's where the focus should be.
Yes.
Because when you look the country as a whole, it looks like, for example,
Oh yeah. We in all the presentations we have a quintile comparison.
I see. Okay, and so on the site, on your site, you have a site, and there are reports there that go into the different rural areas.
I need to check, but I don't think, maybe some sub-reports,
Yeah.
and where data is available as well. So sometimes for certain countries, we are not able to look into the quantiles because some countries, they don't have that disaggregation,
Right.
unfortunately. But for the countries that do have that data available, we always check, as Yacine said, especially when they have the advocacy activities with the different countries. In those presentations and reports, we use the quantiles because we understand the relevance of that measurement.
So my last question then for you, because Ayana's hand is up. My last question then is, do you know if you have any of those sub-reports for any of the Caribbean countries? For the Caribbean countries in particular?
I don't think we have a sub-report, but we can look at the quantiles.
That would be awesome. I would be very, very, very extremely interested to see.
Yeah, we can check which countries we have data available for, and then share that with you.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
We have graphs of the different countries.
Great. Just to make sure, I'm going to share one slide where you can see how we do that. But while it's
Ayana,
coming
go
up,
ahead, please.
Okay, we should wait until Yacine puts up his slide.
Hello?
Okay. Go ahead, Yacine.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Ayana. Yeah, I think my connection is not.
Okay, I thought that the slide you wanted to put up would have been in response to Kim's question, so I thought I'd wait until you'd done so.
It will be, but I think we can come back to that.
Okay, understood. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Ayana Samuels here from Jamaica. Very excited to be here, and thank you, Anna and Yacine, for the work you've done for the Latin American Caribbean region in this report. Anna, when you gave us that table of the top 10 countries, are you hearing me well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. I understand that we have an ADI score, and I understand that we have a broadband plan score of sorts too, but there were numbers to the right, and I noticed that even though you had countries at the top with 0 and you had countries further down with 0, but I'm not sure that I'm clear on what those numbers represented and why it didn't seem to be chronological in the top 10 listings. So I thought it would be important to try to get an understanding of that. So when I look at the data of each of the countries, then I can be a little more crisp on the ratings and why they were as they were, because I think that's really important.
Definitely, yeah. So those numbers in that table in the right are the actual changes in the whole ADI scores around the different 72 countries that we cover in the
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So, understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
So
and this should have been. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So for example, Argentina, it has gone up 5 3 positions, sorry, in the general ADI of the 72 countries. We included the change in the general one. We will actually publish some regional sub-reports. So we will have one for the Americas, and we will have their ranking as well, and maybe the change in the region, which makes more sense. Because then you see what's that move from the previous ADI, from the last year's ADI to this one in the region. But here we included the general ones.
Understood. And obviously, the fact that there was no change didn't necessarily mean that the country is doing well and would rate highly. There are other factors which came into play, which is why you have countries with no change that still just were not doing quote unquote as well or as high up as the countries that were in the higher positions, correct? So you would have assessed everything and coming to that
yes,
rating and decision. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That helps. And I just want to second what Kim said too, that I'd be extremely excited to see those disaggregated country by country reports if they may be available for the Caribbean region. So that got me very excited too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We will publish those reports in the beginning of next year.
If I can.
Yeah, Yacine, go ahead. Yacine? Okay, so I don't know, Yacine, maybe.
He said his connection was not fantastic.
Yeah,
so
okay.
that
So
may be happening.
that was the slide. Maybe you were not able to see very good, but that's like how we divide the quantiles for each country. So first quantile, second quantile, and then you can see how the affordability is doing on those quantiles. And very commonly in the region, when you disaggregate by those quantiles, you can see that the lowest quantiles are not able to afford the data. Not even the 1 gigabyte, or less than 2% of their national, their average monthly income. So yeah, it's how we work with the quantiles. And in those regional reports, maybe we will include something around the quantiles because we understand the relevance of that way of looking into the data.
Thank you.
Ayana, do you have any other comments?
No, not for now. And I noticed that Deidre has written a question in the chat window. So thank you very much.
Okay, so.
Can I come in now if it's okay?
Yeah, give me a second. I will answer Deidre and then you can go, yeah? So Deidre, to answer your question, yes, we're actually looking into publishing some blogs around electricity because we understand that without electricity, there's no point about talking about connectivity, broadband access. So we're looking into that now because we understand that there's a strong correlation between if someone has electricity and is able actually to connect. So we're looking into that data and we'll publish something next year around the importance of having electricity. Naveen, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks. I did scan the report. I didn't go into the details, and it's a very, very useful content. And well done to the contributors. I have 2 points to make. First, on meaningful connectivity. So it took me some time to understand meaningful connectivity and the metrics behind defining that target. Because 1, it's affordable, 2, it can be implementable. But what I would want to say, it should be a short-term target, not a long-term. And we should aspire for gigabit connectivity down the road, and that should be in broadband plans, because that is the future. Obviously, the price is important, and if you force suppliers to cap their wholesale access price, then they won't make the money to roll out the infrastructure, right? My second point is on the broadband plans, and I did make a comment in the email chat, and I felt that they should have a template for broadband plans going forward. Now, I know this is about national broadband plans, but you would find a lot of local governments, local authorities, regional corporations. I'm based in the UK, so you have a lot of the counties doing their own broadband plans up here, which makes sense rather than a national plan. So having a template that can be used by the emerging countries would probably make it easier for them to want to do it, or some incentive to do it, because a lot of them don't have the resources to actually put the data or the pieces together to make it a viable plan. So in short, yeah, a template would really be useful, you know, at the community level or at the wider national level. That's it from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Naveen. Great contributions. And I think the template idea is a great one, because not many of these, maybe a national broadband plan is one thing, but when you go to the regions, they don't have the resources, and a template sounds very good. We attempt to divide the policy recommendations and set some ideas on how should that template will look like. But I think it's a great idea, and thank you for your contribution. Do you have any thoughts on that? Teddy is my colleague. I mentioned him in the beginning, and he's here joining us.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'll just quickly jump in and take Yacine's place to help moderate, so Anna's not having to take all of the whole battle on her own. But yeah, it is a great contribution, Naveen, about broadband plans and a template that could be brought together. I think there is some starting points of it rather within both our work at A4AI, but also within the UN Broadband Commission in terms of kind of setting what are kind of the key ingredients that make a successful national broadband plan, in tandem with kind of being responsive to the local context. So in a lot of cases, it can be the geography or income can be very influential factors that do matter and aren't necessarily going to be, you can have a template that says, that prompts the question, but doesn't necessarily help answer the question fully. But yeah, it's something for the horizon for us. I see many muted mics and no raised hands, but are there any other questions from anyone?
Well, I wanted to ask, but
Okay.
yeah, the only reason I'm asking is because there are no raised hand. Oh, there's Deirdre's hand is raised. Let Deirdre go.
Okay, we'll let Deirdre go and then we can come back to you, Kim.
Yeah.
Deirdre, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks very much, Kim. Good afternoon, everybody. I remember at a CTU meeting a long time ago in the Bahamas, somebody from Digicel was presenting on the fact that it really isn't possible. I'm remembering this from a long time ago, that the issue of unlimited connection bumps into the possibility of everybody who is connected to that particular place wanting to stream a video at exactly the same time. You have a huge demand, where at another time there's hardly any demand at all. And I was wondering whether there is a way of measuring how good the connection is for people at the time when, for example, all of the children are likely to be trying to do their homework, or everybody has got their school assembly in the morning, something like that. The demand is uneven through the day. So saying you've got the level of connectivity doesn't really work, because you may all be wanting to have that connectivity at the same time. I'm sorry, that was very incoherent. I hope you understood.
Yeah, of course, Deirdre, no worries. Anna, do you want to speak a bit to that?
I don't think we have that way of measuring that unlimited connectivity, unfortunately. It will be really interesting to see, and because we are aiming for meaningful connectivity, we will be interested actually in seeing how is that connection behaving throughout the day, and which, when children are doing their homework, that connection goes down. So it will be very interesting to include that in our measurements and try to find a way to measure actually how is that connection, unlimited connection, behaving. I think it's a very relevant thing to incorporate and to think about, because even if it's unlimited, it's not maybe offering a meaningful connectivity, because many people are joining and are doing certain things in certain time of the day, and that causes the connectivity to be not meaningful, even if it's unlimited. So thank you, Deidre, for that intervention. Very relevant.
I just wanted to say that measuring and ensuring quality of service is part of the regulatory framework. And usually regulators are in charge of making sure that what is offered has enough quality, and that the providers do have the infrastructure in place to fulfill what they committed when they're selling a service. So that is probably part of the overall consumer protection, quality of service monitoring that regulators do. And somehow, somewhere in the policy surveys, I think we do touch a little bit that about how much the regulations are being enforced. And that would then down the road translate into a score into the Affordability Report drivers index, because it's somewhere there. Although we do not measure exactly with that, but it's somewhere. Are the regulations like quality of service being enforced, and how well they are being enforced is part of the policy survey that leads up to the ADI score. I mean, as far as I remember, when I did a few years ago, one of these surveys.
That was helpful, Yacine. Thank you.
If I can just come in really quick, Yacine, a piece of research that we did a few years ago, so it actually predates Anna's time with us at A4AI, was looking at kind of the regulatory frameworks around quality of service, which does include some data around what were the average download and upload speeds in a number of low and middle income countries, which was quite a rare data set at the time. Fortunately, now Measurement Lab does provide that data publicly and keeps it much more up to date than what we have. But you'll see there in the chat, I added a link to that report, but it covers, if I remember correctly, it's Colombia, Bangladesh, and another country now that I'm completely blanking on, unfortunately. But it tells a quite stark story where that in the whole arc of how well different regulatory environments are able to respond to quality of service issues on top of just the binary of simple access as well. So it is quite a complex one, and one that we and many others are trying to develop the indicators to understand a bit better. Yacine, back to you.
No, it's fine. I see Nicolo has hand raised.
Nicolo,
Yeah,
please go ahead.
hi everyone. It's Nicolo from the World Bank. My question is more on the data side, and like whoever is familiar with the topic, we know that we usually struggle to find a reliable and complete source and data set about tariffs, about mobile, even fixed broadband prices. We have the ITU, we have cable.co. Looking forward, are you planning to like work for establishing a reliable data set that that different stakeholders could utilize for research, for policy suggestions? Because I think coming from the analytical perspective, this is something we really struggle, and you guys, you do a really great work because we rely on your reports, but everyone actually here who works in this industry is missing this piece of information. Thanks.
Thank you, Nico. We do have our broadband pricing, and it covers around 115 countries each year, and we have been collecting that from 2015. So in our website, you can find data pricing. It's mobile data pricing. So, but you can find there different data gaps. So 1 gigabyte, 5 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte, and the affordability of that data, both in USD and in affordability. And you have some other details there in our data set, so you can check that out, and hopefully it helps you.
Yes, and Teddy can tell us if the next one for 2020 is about to be published in collaboration with ITU, I think, right?
Next year, yeah. Early next year, we will be released. We're working on that project with ITU, as Yacine mentioned. Together with them, we're collecting other baskets, and it will be released in the beginning of next year. So hopefully it'll help you as well. It will include fixed broadband as well. So you will have more covering there.
May I ask you a follow-up question on the topic?
Sure.
Like, are you planning to do anything that combines data prices but also devices prices? Because what we're realizing at the bank is that usually even devices could be an obstacle to access to the internet. Because of many reasons, maybe there are import duties or whatever, prices are very high, so people do not buy smartphone in a nutshell. Are you planning to do anything on this regard?
We did that this year. Actually, we collected device prices among several countries. Published, I think it was in August, if I'm not wrong, around that time. So it's, I think Yacine shared with you the link there in the chat, and you can check that that data as well. We covered quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's worth telling how the device prices are also a big barrier for connectivity, and as well we correlate that with data affordability, and understand both of them are big barriers for connectivity. So you can find data as well. Yeah. I think you can download the data set and check the report.
Yeah, and I think the graphic just the graphic that shows how many days you have to work to get a smartphone, the same smartphone in countries, and you compare that, is a powerful graphic, because it really shows the difference. From Haiti, you have to work 26 days to get the same smartphone that you can buy in 1 day of your average income in, I don't know which other country. But that's the kind of powerful graphics I like. As the quintile one, I couldn't show before I was disconnected because of my poor quality of service. With the quintile incomes, those are the powerful comparisons, country comparisons, where you can see.
It's gone. But yeah, Nicolo, you can check that there. And as Yacine was mentioning,
how it affects those who have less.
Are there any other questions or comments you wanted to comment before? Do you
a couple of things just very quickly. One, that this is the one I didn't want to ask, because I know that I'm sure that you have it in your methodology, and I don't want to waste your time. But since there are no hands raised, I will ask though. What is the reason for not including Trinidad and Tobago? And what is the rationale for the choice of countries? Because I'm not seeing the standard 193 countries or whatever that the ITU typically captures. So most particularly, I'm not seeing Trinidad and Tobago. So is it that I'm missing it, or is it there, what is the reason for not including Trinidad and Tobago? This is the question that I'm only asking because no hands are up, and then I'll make a statement.
They are high-income countries, so we don't cover high-income countries. So we normally focus on low-income countries and middle-income countries. So that's our focus, and that's what we cover.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks, Abel. Right, so the issue of the quality of service. So if you're considering quality of service simply on the basis of data speed, data rate, right? We, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, we have quality of service regulations. And I believe, though, that the regulations in terms of average speed. Yeah, it is meaningless. It's, from my point of view, it's not so meaningful to speak of peak data rate for a number of reasons. One reason is that the closer you are to the cell site or to the AP or whatever, the closer you are, the higher the data rate, because the higher the power, the higher the data rate. So that is one of the reasons. What you want to do is look at the data rate at the cell edge, or at the, the edge of the coverage of the AP or whatever, right? But if you do that, then that does not address the issue, I think, that Deirdre raised, which is that on average, it could look fine, but in fact, whenever I want to use the internet, it's crappy, because that's when the traffic is concentrated. And Teddy, I believe that the link that you sent us to, I believe that may also treat quality of service as an average, looking at data rate, and then within data rate, representing data rate as an average. So one of the issues is how you compute the average. If you say, okay, well, we have to compute it, it has to be based on an average, it can't be based on a peak. Then perhaps you can say, let's look at the average over in geographic areas, but over time. So over a 24-hour period, or in fact a 7 by 24-hour period, what is our average looking like there? And then we can start to see peaks and valleys and so on. And there are strategies, of course, to try to equalize, but the first thing you need, of course, is the data. Anyway, just a comment about that.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think it's one that's it comes down to the data in the brutality of it. Is I don't think a lot of countries, particularly the countries where A4AI works, has the regulatory capacity to get that level of granularity in its data. There are some private vendors that do provide some of that data. So for example, OpenSignal is quite good about it. And they had some really interesting research about measuring countries over time in relation to the pandemic and when it started. And so it was seeing how different markets responded to accommodating fluctuating demand over the course of a day, but also over the course of months as habits and behaviors changed. It's a challenge. And I think one that both in terms of collecting the data itself, but also in terms of thinking of it as an infrastructural issue of generally, if the priority is to build good, high quality infrastructure, you need to be able to prioritize that for across whatever geography and have it be robust enough that it can handle whatever time period or kind of rush hour, so to speak, that is going to be thrown at it. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, I was going to mention OpenSignal and other ways of sort of crowdsourcing the data and trying to triangulate that with more authenticated data, but the sort of the triangulation, just opportunistic, just gathering data opportunistically and then dealing with the integrity of it, one way or the other. Very, very interesting.
I think Netflix also is gathering some interesting data because they are interested in that you have a good stream and no downtime and immediate. So I think the industry that is interested in the other part of the industry behaving well could help us get the data right.
And if perhaps if I can just say
faster than regulators.
No comment. Yeah. So, if I may, I'll just say one more thing, and that's hopefully it's one more thing, and that's that not to reduce the importance of what you're doing in any way, but it is though if we look outside of what you are doing to the bigger picture. It really is important to have multiple strategies, so between you and me in private, I don't know that it's the responsible thing to do to put all of the burden on the delivery of meaningful internet. I mean, I think that any reasonable strategy should include a number of different, sub-strategies, right? Like, we cannot always, at this moment in time, we cannot always get what we want. And therefore, let us have some, a tiered system of operations that recognizes that even though this is what we need and this is what we want, we simply don't have it, So just a number of tiered strategies that, we recognize outside of your initiative that really are the responsible thing for any institution, meaning, an organization or any other form of institution to be committed to.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point, and one that we've increasingly incorporated into even the work that we're doing in terms of the affordability report, and the indicators are becoming more responsive to kind of the diversity of business models, essentially, to providing connectivity. So it's not just necessarily seeing that everything needs to be mobile broadband through a mobile network. That's one ingredient to the whole kind of medley of approaches, whether that's community networks, universal service funds, public Wi-Fi spots. And it is about using all of those methods above and combining those strategies together that is going to get us to the connectivity that we hope people will have in the future.
And if that is the strategy, which I think is the only reasonable and responsible strategy, then a central thing is the acquisition and sharing of data, so that all of those activities and initiatives can be undertaken in a way that is efficient and useful, resource efficient across all resources, without putting all of the burden on the service provider, Yacine. It's simply not realistic to put all of the burden and say, well, you have a regulatory obligation to provide, 1 gigabit per second, 24 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. It's just simply, anyway, what I'm saying is data. We need to have data and we need to share the data.
We need data indeed, Kim.
And we need good analysis.
Yeah, data is key for good analysis, and we try as well to collect as much data as possible, but it's always a challenge. Thank you, Kim, for your interventions. Really good points, and everyone for joining. I think we can wrap up now. We're on top of the hour. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for your input, for your comments. Really good questions and really good conversation. I hope you all understood a bit more about our report. We invite you to read it and explore the data as well.
Thanks a million. I just want to say, thanks so much for the opportunity to chat. I mean, I would love to chat some more, just like this, if that's okay.
Sure. I'm sure Yacine and Teddy are up for it as well. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. And
okay, bye-bye.
Yeah. We can select pieces of the. Thanks everyone.
He's dropped out again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yacine, I don't know that we heard you very well.
Yeah. Yacine, were you saying something?
I said thank you.
Oh, okay. You gotta work on that bandwidth, boy.
Thank you.
Take care.
I think if there's ever a year where this report is relevant during the pandemic, it's so needed and so relevant and really exposes the inequities that exist. So I thank you. Without data-informed action, we can't move meaningfully forward. And so this is a critical step in us bringing all the resources together, as Kim mentioned, to move the arena forward. So thank you so much, everyone. We continue to plow forward.
For sure. Love to all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.